Destination Linux.
All right,
see how I did that? So professional.
You're awesome.
Zeb. Dang it. I'll get you later.
Got him.
You better not make a single mistake during this episode, Zeb. Not a single one.
Let's take a quick sound recording and make sure everybody's levels are right. Don't all speak at once.
The red-brown fox jumped over the fence in Britain with the British Zeb money stuff. Quibs. Quiddles. Quibbits. What do you guys use over there? Quibbits? Quiddles?
Quiddles.
Squid feet? What was it yesterday? We found squid feet?
I said 50 squid.
Squid.
Let's not record this part. Challenging it,
Mike,
because there's no reason.
I'm just trying to start you up, dude. I don't really care.
I know it, and I'm perfectly happy with it.
I mean,
dude, you don't. No. Let's get this one thing clear. This is recorded, right?
Yes.
Okay,
it's recorded.
Okay, so one thing clear. In order to get me riled up, you say, Michael, just say something, and done. Let's do it.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Who's clicking?
Michael.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I wouldn't know who's clicking.
I would never do that.
Totally not.
Yeah, they've been working on that for years. Destination Linux is a go.
Welcome to another episode of Destination Linux Podcast.
Welcome to episode 63. I'm Rocco, and your hosts this week are Ryan, Michael, and Zeb. And this is Destination Linux. So, we have an awesome show this week that you're going to want to stick around for. We're going to talk about some Ubuntu Mate 1804 beta news.
Yeah.
Some Zorin. Some, not so well-known distros. And gaming, of course. So, Ryan, what's going on, man?
Man, I've been having a great week. Let me tell you. We'll get to it a little bit in Mate, which will be a funny story when we cover that news. But this week, I finally was able to move. I had a horrible experience the last couple of weeks with my web provider and was finally able to move my entire website over to DigitalOcean. I got a LAMP server set up there. I'm now in control. So it was down for 3 days naturally. But after that, I've got it back up. Michael helped me as well with some awesome tips and was able to get the site up and running, and everything's working great over there. So that was very cool to see some of the things that I've learned over the years put into action and have my own web server for my website. And also, I got my car running Linux. I got a brand new car, and it runs Linux.
So
nice.
What car and what is it running?
Okay, so I got a Honda HR-V, okay, which is kind of like a crossover car, SUV, and it has in there, of course, they've got like all the cars these days, the digital screens, but there's no TV on it or anything like that. But you can use it as that. As a TV because it has an HDMI plug-in, and the HR-V has an ability to, when the car's in park, that feature kind of turns on. So it doesn't allow you while you're driving, that turns on while you're in park. And so I took a Raspberry Pi and I thought, well, if I can get the resolution down to 720p and then plug this in to the HDMI port that's actually behind in the stereo console, then I should be able to run Linux. And sure enough, I've posted it in Telegram. It runs Linux. We got the Raspbian on there, and it's beautiful. And I thought my wife would be like, take this thing out. But then I showed you guys a video on Telegram of my wife playing Minecraft while she was waiting in the car line to pick up my kids. So she loves it too. So awesome. It's pretty cool. So Linux is now in the car. So that makes it even that much more special.
That's awesome.
So how well did i3 work out for you on it?
i3 in the car. Could you imagine trying to do the keyboard? Yeah, that would be terrible. But I did order a little mini keyboard and mouse, so
nice.
That's something you could play with. But yeah, I've got to try i3. I guess that would be amazing, wouldn't it? So Zeb, what have you been up to this week?
Well, I've been having a tidy up of my system, and I finally let Calculate Linux go. I didn't really want to let it go because it took so long to set up. And once I had it set up, it was just working. But it really doesn't offer enough to warrant any future maintenance. So that's now gone. So I've gone down from the potential of having 10 OSs to just 6. And that will hopefully allow me to still do some testing for when we do distros on the show.
So you have 10 distros running right now? Like you have...
No, I had 10 distros. I've now only got space for 6.
Man,
Wow.
only 6.
Only 6. Don't know
Can you
what I'm
imagine
gonna
trying to narrow it down to just 6, Rocco?
How do you live with yourself, Sam?
Is that like 6 you use every day, or...
I tried to log into them every day just to make sure that they're still working. And it's funny enough, the one that I go back to the least is Peppermint because I know it just works. And that's
You know
really
it's gonna
sad
work,
because
right.
it's my
Yep.
distro of choice.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's
but
not as exciting because it just works.
No, I know it's reliable. It's like the minute I know I've got to do a podcast, I'm on Peppermint.
Right.
Done. Everything just works.
It's
So,
it's
but
kind
the
of
other stuff, and the one that I'm really enjoying at the moment is Ubuntu. Really, really good.
yeah, because of plasma.
Yeah, it's excellent. So that's me for the week. So a bit fussy, a bit twitchy, but other than that, it was okay. But what about you, Michael? What have you been up to?
I've been doing lots of things, but this past week, this Tuesday, I recorded a couple episodes with the Ubuntu podcast guys. So I'm going to be a guest
Trader.
host. So as I was saying, sir, I was going to be a guest. I've already been a guest host in episode 3, which came out just recently, and episode 4 will be coming out this week when this airs. And it was a lot of fun. And even though Ryan does not appreciate it,
Uh-huh.
he does know that it's necessary to spread the word of Destination Linux.
Well, those guys are great over there, so
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to listening to it.
Yeah. What I found quite amusing though was like the first real discussion you had was about teaching one of the other guys' sons to play Rocket League.
Yeah, yeah. I actually taught him on. I met him on Discord. Didn't know who he was until after I taught him how to play the game. He was already playing the game roughly, but I gave him a bunch of tips and stuff. And then Popey came in and said something. And was like, do you meet my son? And like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh, okay, I guess I did.
Oh, so Rocco, that's why he sent you that message when he said he was playing Rocket League with his favorite podcast.
Yes.
That's what he meant. I got you.
Wow. Wow.
Well, we'll put a link for that podcast and the episode you're in, Michael, in the show notes, so everybody can go listen to it.
Sounds good.
Rocco, what have you been up to, man?
Well, okay, so everybody hassled me for the last how many weeks about hopping or not hopping. So I did. I blew up the KDE
They
Neon.
twisted your arm.
I didn't really want to do it. I don't really want to distro hop, but I more or less had to. Or at least that's what I told myself. So I nuked and paved KDE Neon.
That's what I told myself.
And I didn't know which one I was going to go with. I tried multiple distros in the last week, and I ended up settling on Ubuntu Budgie.
Nice. I mean, that's a good one to settle on, right?
Well, I still have Ubuntu Mate on the NVMe drive, waiting there. As Zeb says, it just works. So that's all fine. But I'm running right now Ubuntu Budgie.
Oh, Martin just sent me a telegram. It says traitor. I don't know what he means. It's weird.
It's kind of interesting because that's who actually I replaced for the episode while he was out of town. So it does make sense.
Huh.
Traitors all around. Maybe that's the title of the show. Traitors.
Traitors all around.
Walking the plank.
So is that the beta you're on, Rocco?
No, it's the 1710. This is the production machine. This is the one I'm recording off of. And I didn't want to take the chance of doing a beta. I know some of the 1804s are pretty stable, but I still didn't want to take the chance of doing a beta. So when one of the 1804s come out or when the 1804s come out, I will probably be picking one of them to go to.
Nice. So how are you liking it? I mean, what's your rating so far? You've been on it for about a week, right?
Well, here's the thing. The ratings come after. Like, I go through a series of tests that I do to make sure it's going to work for me. Like, actually, one of the tests is playing Rocket League.
Yep.
If that comes on the right screen and everything works on it. One of the other tests is getting Telegram messages while playing Rocket League, because on specifically Ubuntu, the screen will move down completely.
In Gnome, you mean, right?
Yeah, when I get a notification. So that was definitely out, and that hasn't been fixed even in the 1804 version. So, and a couple of the other tests are what version of Kdenlive I can get, how long does it take to render a video? And this one has passed all the tests so far. And I always liked Budgie. I always liked it because it's got awesome defaults and it looks nice.
Right.
So we'll see.
Nice. Very cool.
Sounds good. So that's all us sorted for the week. So what I'd like to do now is move on to a listener question, if that's okay. We had an email from Raymond, and he had a question specifically about his particular setup. So what he said is, I have 3 monitors, HPs, and I have a 3-port NVIDIA Corporation G96GL. And he then goes on to say it's a Quadro FX 580. So it sounds quite old to me. I'm trying to get all 3 monitors to work, but I have only been able to get 2 of the 3 to be seen by my desktop system. And he then goes on to tell us that he's got a HP Z800 workstation. And he's working with Cinnamon /Gnome 3. And he says, I've installed both versions of NVIDIA drivers to no luck. Now, not quite sure what he means by both versions of the drivers. But I think, Ryan, you provided some potential solutions for him.
Yeah, I mean, some of the options that I've tried in the past when I've had issues. I mean, I've run 3 monitors on Linux before, and running the latest proprietary driver. Of course, I have a much more recent NVIDIA graphics card, but making sure you're using the proprietary NVIDIA drivers would be number one thing that I certainly would try. In his case, though, Michael gave a follow-up kind of recommendation on there, which was actually better than my answer, which was he probably actually needs to not use the latest NVIDIA proprietary driver, being that it's older, and go find on NVIDIA's site. They actually list out, based on your model number, the driver that you can use within Linux and go and download. The other thing that I've noticed happens a lot is if you have monitors that have different hertz. For instance, I have a 144 hertz monitor. I have a 60 hertz monitor. If you are trying to move screens between those, and you do not have them set correctly, so one monitor sets to 144, it may try to set all 3, etc. You can have issues like that, or all are set at 60. You can have issues running on your third monitor. So making sure that everything is kind of set at their native resolution and hertz when you're setting them up, especially if you're cloning your desktop, which is what he mentioned he was doing. So not having 3 desktops, but cloning them all. So that could cause an issue if you've got 3 different kinds of monitors. And then finally, just making sure that you've checked your cables and don't have any issues there. I know I've been caught like, of course it's not a cable issue. It's worked for years. And then I find out, it was a cable issue. The third thing, or I guess the last thing too, is I have used an HDMI, DVI, HDMI, I guess it's, what do they call it? An external kind of pluggable. Well, it's actually made by Pluggable, but it's a pluggable device that goes into a USB drive that basically creates through your USB an additional HDMI DVI interface, so you can plug additional monitors into. A lot of people use it for laptops, but you can also use it for your desktop to add, say, a 4th or 5th or 6th or whatever monitor you have, depending on the port. So
there's a GPU adapter built into it.
Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Yep.
I actually haven't seen one of those that exists for Linux. So, I mean, I'd like to say that, because every one I've ever seen is only like a Windows only or something.
Well, I know the Pluggable brand one works for Linux, because that's what I have, and I've used it.
I need to look into that.
Well, that's good. Well, Raymond has already, because I think he had your answer in the week, Ryan,
Right.
and he's already come back to us and said, "Hey guys, thanks for getting back to me. It's greatly appreciated. I tried a variety of connectors options, but to no avail. What I ended up doing was putting in a second graphics card for the third monitor, which solved my problems." And then he said, "Thanks very much. Keep up the great work with Destination Linux. Regards, Raymond." So it sounds like we have a happy emailer.
Well, listen,
Nice.
hopefully that second graphics card he put in there was like a 1080 or a Vega 64, and in which, what an awesome way to solve the problem.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, sorry it took so long to get back to you, Raymond. We hope we're glad you got up and running. And if anybody else has any ways that they've finagled or figured out how to work with the multiple monitors, definitely can send it in and we'll share those with you as well.
Very nice.
Also, Rocco, we want to do a shout out. We
shout out to
haven't
who,
done a
dude?
lot of shout outs. Well, I think, every once in a while we want to do a shout out to those in the community that we just absolutely, there are individuals in the community we interact with, whether through our Telegram group, YouTube channels, on Biddle, or our own channels, that just are absolute awesome people that you realize these are the kind of people that if you met in real life, you'd instantly want to go have a drink with and hang out with, or they just provide amazing content. It could be a plethora of things that they do. But this week, I think we can all agree on somebody who's helped many, many channels, whether from early on, in my case, when I was just a small, young channel, to those who are big streamers, and that's Karl Schneider.
Karl Schneider is the man.
The man.
He has helped so many channels behind the scenes that nobody sees. He's helped so many distros for their artwork that you may notice it, or you may find out that was Karl's work, but it's not highlighted anywhere that Karl did this artwork. So
His artwork is so subtle. It's so clever. It's not in your face. It's just blends in with everything else. It's great.
Yep. Not
He's
only
also
that,
really good to get feedback from too. So you just ask him any question, he's available to get feedback from. So it's great.
yeah, and he volunteers to help out, and I don't know if he has official sites or must do this professionally or whatnot, but he's also hilariously funny, because if you guys remember the whole thing about DOS Google and all of that was going on, where people were basically renaming me to DOS Google, he starts instantly sending Rocco wallpapers behind the scenes, but they're beautiful. I ended up using them on my channel, so it's like a joke.
I used it on my desktop wallpaper for like a week.
So not only is he awesome and does great artwork, but he's very funny and would be just an awesome dude to hang out with someday. So in any case, I think he deserves a good shout out.
Well, he does pop into Biddle. He definitely awesome guy. Awesome guy. We'll have a link to his DeviantArt page, and I don't know if he has any other sites or not, but we'll leave a link to those in the show notes.
Awesome. All right. So you remember when we had Manjaro on, Rocco, and I asked Philip a question and he said RTFM?
I do.
So Ryan, simply read the manuals.
Just read the manual. How dare you?
Yeah, but
This interview is over, Rocco.
That was awesome.
Okay, well, read the manual, and you guys can fill in what the F stands for. And so in case people don't know that lingo, but it was a joke. It was really funny. So recently, I was using Ubuntu Mate 18.04.
Okay.
I'm liking it a lot, but I wanted to be able to tile the windows. So I was like, I'm gonna go Telegram Martin Wimpress, and ask him how to tile the windows.
Right.
And he's super nice about the whole thing, but he's like, I really think that's in the manual. And sure enough, when I go into it, there are all these keyboard shortcuts listed out there for tiling, but it uses the Alt key instead of the Super key. So, it had thrown me a little bit, but it's right there. So I got RTF'd in by Martin and from Philip Manjaro. I'm really starting to rack him up. But no, he was super nice about it and directed me to that. So in any case, I've been playing around with Ubuntu 18.04 in its beta testing. And there are so many awesome changes going on within Ubuntu Mate. Obviously, you have the better high DPI support, global menu support, GTK+3 support for all their themes. But there's also the whole new default layout called Familiar.
Yeah. And it's caused some ripples, huh?
Well, I guess it's caused some ripples, but I can tell you it's beautiful. I absolutely love it. And I guess the big deal is that it replaces the menu bar with the brisk menu.
Which is how I have my 1710 set up on the NVMe drive. Exactly the way the new Familiar layout is exactly how I have it, which is, to me, the way it should be.
Nice.
Modernizing the old style of the traditional style.
Yeah. I mean, I think it looks gorgeous. I used it before this article even came out. I had switched to 18.04 to do testing, and I saw it in there, and I was just going through the options. I wasn't even paying attention to the names, and that's the one I naturally defaulted to, like, oh, I like this one the most, and just started using it. So it's awesome. It's going to be the new default. I will tell you that when you switch, though, in 18.04, and this may be fixed by the time this comes out, but if you switch to different themes, and it seems to be specific to Familiar, everything goes blank, and all you have is the two toolbars. And if you just go up to the toolbar, right-click, and reset to default, it'll all go back to normal and be fine. But that's just a little bug that's currently, I mean, it's in beta, so kind of expected to be a little buggy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few bugs that some of the people in the Telegram have been talking about with layouts and updates and stuff. So it's beta, but they'll be fixed by the time it releases.
But otherwise, I mean, I'm on it right now on my main machine. I'm on it on my laptops. I've really been enjoying it. So there are a few little bugs like that are you can work around. Like I said, you just right click the toolbar, reset default, everything goes fine. But otherwise, you can tell this is going to be another really solid release from Mate that's going to be coming out, because, some of the other ones that are in the 18, you can barely get to work. This one seems like it's pretty close to release quality.
I agree. My testing has been pretty much flawless. So,
yep.
Well,
you haven't tested it, have you?
I've tested a bunch of Mate last one, yeah. But the funny thing is I was actually, I was testing something, and then it bothered me, and it was like the graphics were like messed up and wasn't doing what I expected it to do. And then it's this. Okay, so how earlier Zeb, he said he was going to pull down the 10 distros down to 6. I am going from 1 to 6, so his down to 6 is like a very big. For me, it feels like I'm expanding greatly, and his is like I'll deal with as little as possible, I guess. And so I haven't distro hopped in so long that I forgot some things. So I was kind of bothered by like something not working right. I didn't install the drivers.
Wow.
Yeah,
you heard it here first. Michael Pinnell forgot something.
Yeah, it happens. It happens.
Well, it reminds me of Linus one time. They were asking him, about installing Ubuntu and stuff. And he's like, I couldn't figure out how to install it. It was during like a press conference or something like that. And here he designs the whole kernel. So, it could be different when you're coming from a different, because you've been on KDE Neon forever.
Yeah, I've been on the same install for like 2 years now. Yeah, I just forgot that I know I have to do these things, and I don't have a list of what I need to do, and I just totally forgot about it.
Yep.
Well, there's a lot of hype around the new 1804 Ubuntus at the moment, but there are other distros that are still just merrily rolling along and doing their stuff. And one of those had a new release this week, and it was Antix 17.1. Now, for those of you who don't know, that's like, I don't want to call it like the baby brother to MX, because I think it was around before. It was around the time of Mepis. But Antix is really designed for your old school Linux and your older machines, and it works brilliantly. They're offering in this particular release the new 4.9.87 kernel, which is patched for Meltdown and Spectre. All packages have been upgraded to Debian 9.4. And to just prove to you that they're really trying to have that niche of the old hardware, they've got some new sys media graphics. Now, I hadn't heard of sys media in like 9 or 10 years, so that was pretty good. I love the way that, although they're that slant towards the older distro, they're taking some of the newer stuff from MX. So they've ported the repo manager, the Antix viewer, the live USB maker. So they realize is that whilst they like to stay old school and work on these old machines, they can still bring some of this newer technology to everybody. So the question, of course, is then, how did it go? Because I'm not necessarily someone who likes the old school stuff. Well, I got it installed and everything was working. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking, what's this Rocks Windows Manager? Where's my normal stuff? I'm just not used to all these tiling windows or Windows Manager. And it offers like 7 or 8 of them. So it can be a bit confusing for the new users. And everything was working great. And then I installed NVIDIA. Oops. Got dumped down to a prompt. Tried all sorts of various things. And I thought, you know what? This is just one of those. It's not for me, and gave up. But then I thought to myself, hey, this is the MX guys. This is the Antix guys. These forums are just superb. So I went on a mission. I went trawling around their forums to try and find the answers. And hey, I found the answers. I made the simple mistake of not adding the Jesse backports. As soon as I added the Jesse backports, boom, everything worked.
Interesting.
And it's a really nice, smooth, slick, quick distro. Now, I don't know if any of you other guys have tried it, but although it's old school, I'm actually quite enjoying it.
Nice. No, I watched DistroTube. He did a video, and he was trying to do a live video on Antix, and unfortunately it locked up during the live video on him with the install. So I think there may be some little issues with NVIDIA, because he may be running NVIDIA too. I'm not sure, but yeah, I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, but I generally love everything they do over there. So it will be definitely something I'll play with once the NVIDIA stuff gets a little resolved there, because most of my hardware has NVIDIA GPUs.
Yeah,
I used to play with the Antix all the time, because it was one of those like, I had a laptop that was really old at one point, so I needed something that was like that kind of interface. So I used Antix for about a year on a laptop that was AMD based. So I never experienced any kind of like driver issue, just because, well, there weren't any drivers at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well,
Because
here's a
AMD
quick
didn't
tip
do
for
anything.
you, Ryan, when you do use it, get it installed, update absolute everything, reboot, then go into their package manager, because then you can update to the latest kernel, and it's 4.15.9.
Nice.
Once you're on that, and then put the Jesse backports on, NVIDIA works fine. And as I say, it's really, really quick.
Very cool.
So another distro that has been released is Zorin OS 12.3. So if you haven't heard of Zorin, which I don't think anybody's not heard of Zorin, but just to familiarize you with it, it was started in 2008, and the goal is to have them provide a Linux alternative to Windows and let Windows users enjoy all the features of Linux without complications. Okay, that's the goal. The question is, do they hit that goal? So have you guys tried Zorin yet?
I have. It's been a little while though, but I liked it. I tried it with like Zorin 11. I think it's a nice distro. It's probably like one of the better for like beginner users.
Yeah, I played with Zorin this week, and I just, we've mentioned in the past. Personally, I like the menu you're more used to, where it doesn't kind of take over your whole screen. Idea, and this utilizes Gnome, but defaults with more of a standard menu that most of us would be used to, or a Windows user, for instance, would be used to, or that you would see in most desktop applications. And I just thought the theming was gorgeous in it.
Well, it offers a few different versions. So you have Zorin OS Core, Ultimate, Business, and Education. And then you also have a light version of the Ultimate, Business, and Education. Now, the regular Core uses a Gnome version, like you said, where you have it's a very customized Gnome experience, but it doesn't allow you as a user to customize too much of it. It's pretty much set up in the way they think you should use it, and you go from there. Now, the light version offers a XFCE version similar to that, where it's locked down, where you're not going to customize it too much, but they have it set up pretty well to emulate something like a Windows user would be used to. So, Zeb, you have ever tried it?
Funny you should say that, because I went for the light version purely because I prefer XFCE desktops. And unfortunately for me, it's still got that very bright color scheming. And it's either in your face white and a color, which looks great, and it looks very, very modern and very swish, or it's a very dark theme. And even if you try and introduce other themes, because it's XFCE, they don't work so well. So if you're happy with the fact that it is what it is and you get what you get, there's nothing in there that you can't do with it that you can do on any other distro. And you're right, Ryan, the theming does look good, but only if you like bright theming, because their idea of a dark theme is just turn everything that's white black. And that doesn't necessarily work for me. But the distro adding your little installer script works brilliantly on it. Everything just comes straight in, and it's a fine OS.
A shout out to DOSGeek, github.com/DOSGeek channel for the install script.
Thank you.
So I did try it. I did download it. Some of the new features are going to be, they have Wine 3.0 installed so that you can play, a little bit more games maybe than you were able to before with the older versions of Wine. You can customize the folder colors and the emblems. You now have printing indicators on the bottom, so when you start printing something, it'll go into the system tray to say, hey, here's your printing. And the updated kernel is 4.13. It kind of has the same situation where they have a purchase option. So you can purchase the ultimate version for $19. And the difference would be is it has extra layouts. In the regular Zorin, you have a switcher. So you can switch from a icon style taskbar to a full-blown taskbar, kind of like a XFCE runs. Or you can go with a basic Gnome look. So if you buy or purchase the ultimate version for 19, I don't know if it's 19 euro. It's 19 euros, right? If you purchase the ultimate version, you'll have extra layouts, and I'm not exactly sure all of the layouts. I know one of them is a Mac OS look and a Windows 10 look, I'm pretty sure. So I did download it. I did install it. I did do some of the testing, including Rocket League, and even though now I downloaded the core version, which has running the Gnome, because that's what I'm kind of familiar with, and it ran great. And when it popped up the notifications, it did not minimize the screen.
Oh, wow.
Which is different than the latest Ubuntu version. But the notifications were popping up on the second screen, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. So maybe because they were going to the second screen, they weren't interfering with the first screen. But either way, I wasn't having that issue with it. So I didn't get to do full, extensive testing with it, but I did test a few things out, and it worked pretty good. And like you said, Zeb, if you take it for what it is and you don't need to customize it, it's a pretty nice system.
Mm-hmm. They have a lot of default, you kind of touched on this, but a lot of default Wine configuration stuff in Zorin, right? On their paid for versions.
I don't know everything about the paid version as far as what else it offers you. I don't think there's any extra apps in the paid version. I think the paid version is basically, I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the paid version is just to be able to switch the layouts.
You know what? We need them on. We need to have someone from Zorin on to tell us more about this. Because I looked at it and I thought, sometimes you look at these different flavors and you're like, okay. But Zorin's one that I looked at and go, I could run this. It's that pretty and well laid out that I could install this on a main machine. So I'd love to learn more about it.
I agree. So LG announced that they're going to open source the webOS operating system.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. We figured out we're webOS buddies.
Why is this important, and why should I care, Michael?
Okay, because webOS was probably the most ahead of its time operating system ever. So they had unique concepts that changed the way mobile interfaces worked, and in fact changed every way that every mobile interface worked. Every operating system copied most of what made webOS great. So Palm created webOS in about 2000. They announced it in 2008. They released it in 2009. I got mine in 2009.
You still have the Palm Pre.
Yeah,
oh my gosh, look.
Yeah, the Palm.
Would you have any doubt that he still has it?
I can't believe he still has
Look at his shelf behind him.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Look at his shelf.
It belongs in a museum.
Oh. It's going to have its own display on the shelf too.
It deserves one.
Yeah. Does it still work?
Ish. Yeah, ish. The problem with the webOS is not the software; it was the hardware. All the time, it was always the hardware, and it was because this is a cool phone because you got the feature of the regular phone, but then you got a full keyboard thing, and it was really nice to use. Yep. The problem with it is that they spent more time designing the usage of it than the actual internals of the phone. Right. So the battery of the phone was not good.
Abysmal.
Awful. Yeah. And for the point where now it'll work, it'll turn on, and it'll stay on as long as it has the cord plugged into it. Once you take it out, you have about 45 seconds and it's gone.
That's pretty fast mobile usage.
Yeah. It's pretty. That's not that good. But the interface itself is fantastic. And Palm sold a webOS to HP a few years ago in 2011, 2012. HP for a little bit of time promised they were going to make some tablets and phones and stuff, and they didn't really make the phones ever. But they did make a nice tablet, that's a really nice tablet. They then sold it to LG in 2013. LG converted it into a TV interface, so for smart TVs. Which, if you've never used the webOS on a smart TV, it's actually a really good implementation of webOS, and it's the only smart TV interface that I ever actually used, and it was not abysmal. So the idea that they're going to bring back webOS to just in general purpose technology is fantastic. I could not the fact that the Nexus 5 is an LG phone, or the new most of the V10 or the V12 or whatever. The fact that those are available with nice phones, if I could put webOS from here into this, I would be just ecstatic.
Yeah. And development becomes much easier because it's based on, that's the whole name, of course, webOS, web-based languages. So think about all of the development potential there for applications and things, and how easy they would be to apply into this format. And frankly, I would love, I've been talking about this since we started about wanting a third player really in the mobile market. I think people are bored of Android. I think they're bored of iOS. And I think this is the time somebody could come in and actually compete in that arena. The name of the game is getting apps out there. And the cool thing about webOS being web-based is you could get a bunch of apps on it very, very quickly.
Also, there's a whole thing about, a lot of apps are moving to the web app system now instead of just doing the apps for the native apps for the phones. So they're kind of they were way ahead of its time, and now it might be time for a web-based interface to come back. So that is going to be fantastic.
So who do you think is going to use this?
I would.
How long? Yeah, but how long before the apps are going to be coming out? If LG have had it since 2013, why haven't they done something major with it if it's that good?
Because they had deals with it with Google and Android and stuff, so they didn't really have a need to. Right. And they're not really doing it now anyway. Their idea is to open source it so that companies and communities could build it for themselves. And there's actually already work on making a Raspberry Pi version of webOS. Wow, so it's already been moving pretty quickly. They only announced that they were open sourcing it a few days ago. Yeah. And it's going to be, it has a potential to be fantastic. Now, whether it is fantastic or not, I don't know. but like just webOS itself is innovative and most people have no idea. So for example, the biggest example that you could give for webOS being a game changer is the card system. So when you go on Android and you want to close an application, you click the application button, and then it shows you all the applications you have currently, and you just swipe them away. That was invented by webOS, and it was, instead of swiping to the left, you would swipe up, and that would do the exact same thing. So, but the problem is they announced this in CES 2008. They did not release the phone until CES 2009 or a little bit later. And unfortunately, because of that, Android released their function of swiping away cards, basically copying webOS within a few months after webOS came out. So it like removed a lot of the benefits to it. But like at some point, but once you had webOS, all these features were really cool, and they showed them off, and everybody was super excited. But it took so long to get it. Android just copied them all, and then there was no reason to use it. So they kind of like before ahead of its time, and then didn't really manage it well either. So, but if it's open source, then the community can manage it, and we'll do it better.
That's right. So, I'm a Palm Pre buddy with you there, Michael. I hope something really comes of that. I like the last quote from the CTO of LG as we move from an app-based environment to a web-based one, basically talking about everything, right? We believe the true potential of webOS is yet to be seen, and I couldn't agree more with him, and I can't wait to see what they come with that. So another thing that you have to keep in mind is if you're going to solve a problem, you have to first admit you have one, Rocco.
Correct. I don't have any problems.
Well, the Mint development team was hearing, I guess, for a while that XFCE and Mate felt snappier than their default Cinnamon desktop environment. And they finally took the time to kind of sit down and put it to the test. And as they were playing with it and, trying XFCE and Mate and then comparing it with Cinnamon, they were kind of like, you know what? It does kind of feel snappier when you're opening apps and things in XFCE and Mate. So then they went so far as to go and create a custom script to try to basically throw hundreds of windows at the desktop environment and do some tests between MetaCity and Cinnamon. And guess what they discovered?
What did they discover?
They discovered Cinnamon slower. So has anybody noticed, has anybody else who's played, because I played with Mint, but I honestly, because I'm such an XFCE fan, always went with XFCE, so I never really played with Cinnamon a whole lot, so I don't know that I was in it long enough to say, yeah, it seems slower.
I used Cinnamon for a couple of years, and it had some issues. It was kind of like one of the few systems that was polished, but also was leaner. But if you compare it with XFCE was obviously faster. And well, it depends on your workflow. Like I always have at least 10, 15, 20 applications running at all times. So I can notice it much faster than some people. But if you're just basic, I tested it recently on a laptop. And if you're just basically using it with like a few programs, you probably wouldn't notice it. So it's interesting that they, took it to like an extreme of testing like 200 at a time. So that's pretty cool.
I used it this week, and I actually asked the question or made a note on the thing here. I used it for 2 hours and didn't notice it was slow. So is it a case of you've got to keep the thing up and running for a week before you notice things like this? Because to me, it just ran like Cinnamon. So I don't know where that. I mean, obviously those timings are crazy because 6 seconds in MetaCity and 22 seconds in Cinnamon. I was expecting to see sort of like milliseconds, in which case, what's all the fuss about? But 22 seconds is a long time to wait for your system to come back in. But using it for 2 hours, I didn't notice it. Using Ferrin OS, which uses Cinnamon, I wouldn't call Ferrin OS slow. So, I didn't see it in the small time I had it going.
Yeah, you wouldn't notice it until you compared it to other ones after you've spent it's not about how long the systems are running. It's how much you put into like the workload of the system. So when I use Cinnamon, I would do like extensive, constant, like compiling and things like that. While like, so my machine is doing something and also loading a bunch of other windows, and you would notice some slowdowns. When I went to XFCE, Mate, or Plasma, I would see that there was a difference, and you could tell. So it's kind of like an issue of just how much you use versus how much, how long you've used it.
Yeah, I think that it's awesome that they went in there. They've kind of heard these comments. They went and tested it, saw that it seemed to be an issue, and then went and built a script to test it even more thoroughly and then put fixes in for it. I think that's really cool. It's going to be snappier. It's going to be more fun to use Cinnamon with it being faster like that. And hopefully now that they have that script, they can keep using it as they make changes within Cinnamon and keep it going.
They're back. They already backported quite a few fixes from Mutters, which is going to improve it so that like the way they described it is very promising. So I'm glad to see that they're doing that. And also what I'm glad to see is KDE member Nathaniel Graham posted on his blog about improvements for his adventures in Linux and KDE. And he's talked about some stuff that's coming in 5.13. And one of the things I would like to see, if Rocco and Ryan, your opinion of this, you've talked about the artifacts and some things about icons and stuff, and they seem to be working on that. So what do you think?
Well, this is a bug that actually Ryan saw as I was sharing my screen.
Yeah.
So this is a bug specifically to like text being unreadable, like if you open the menu at certain times. And it's not the same bug as I was talking about before, where if you come out of suspend, icons would have artifacts all over them and on the panels. So that's a separate issue with an NVIDIA driver. This is specific to Plasma, and I'm glad to see they're working on it because it takes away from the feel of KDE when you open the menu and you can't read the text. I mean,
this is like my beg. I'm begging on my hands and knees to the KDE Plasma team to quit blaming whatever it is, the NVIDIA, whatnot, because I have NVIDIA on every other distro and it just works. I don't have this fragmented text and blocking and in hieroglyphics going on because KDE has everything I want, right? I mean, from window tiling to being absolutely fast and gorgeous and customization. But when it comes to opening a menu and you can't read the text, or whatever, when you run NVIDIA, it's unusable to me. Like, Rocco, you stayed on it way longer than I thought you could because you're a theming.
Well, you're
so into theming, but it's frustrating.
It is frustrating, but that's because of all of the other features. It's kind of like, you're weighing, when you're running a distro, you're weighing, the good and the bad because no distro is perfect. So you're kind of like weighing, should I stay or should I go or whatever. That was a song, I think. Should I stay?
Should I stay or should I go now?
But so after a while, those bugs kind of win out and you switch. And that's exactly what happened to me with KDE Neon, where those type of issues won out. But it is very frustrating. But they're working on it, man.
I've heard it's an NVIDIA issue, but at the same time, work around it like everybody else has, because it really does. I mean, most people who have an external GPU are using an NVIDIA GPU just by stats. So you're taking a lot of customers that are going to have ugly and pixelated issues. I'm very happy to see these fixes in there, and I hope they continue because I want to be able to boot in a KDE with an NVIDIA card and experience everything that's so awesome about this desktop without having to deal with silly things like that.
Yeah, all I heard was Ryan saying that KDE Plasma has everything that I want.
Just cut that part out. It really does. They make some of the best applications out there, period, as well. So, I mean, there's so much to love there. That bug won't stop. Won't go away.
Well, not to be outdone, Gnome 3.28 was released on March 14th.
Of course you bring up Gnome right after Katie.
Of course, dude. Now, this is released on March 14th, but, we're just getting around to it here at Destination Linux. So they have some new features in Gnome 3.28. One of them being the files and folders has a new feature that you can star different files or folders for faster access. Now, I didn't see anywhere, I don't know if you guys did, what it's actually going to look like. Like, where is this feature going to be? How are we going to use it? It's just a blurb saying about a star feature. Michael, anything?
I did see a little bit of. They didn't really say exactly. It's gonna. I think it pretty sure it's gonna be in the hamburger menu, and then you do like click the start section, and then there's going to be like, you know how when you see a display of like your recently opened files, it's just gonna be like that, except it'll be starred stuff that you only what you want to see.
Kind of like the bookmarks are.
I was just about to say, what's the difference between these starred folders and bookmarks?
Well, because this in the start, the bookmarks are like when you have like the recently viewed documents, you click that bookmark, then it shows you all the stuff. But the bookmarks are just folders to quickly get access to something. So this is more, you can star an individual file that you use often and go back to it easily. So you can do files and folders. And as far as the folders go, it's redundant to the bookmarks. But because it's also got files too, it's not as like it has benefit. Like I've never seen a file manager do this kind of thing. So I would like to see what happens with it. So it has potential.
Well, Ryan,
not as much as desktop icons though.
Well, the 1804 release of Ubuntu will be featuring GNOME 3.2 or Nautilus 3.26, so that you don't have to worry about that. But Ryan, you're a huge fan of GNOME, so I know that you would appreciate the fact that now the calendar has a neater month view.
Yes, that was one of the features that I just was beating my head against the desk for, and I'm so glad. But no, I'm teasing. It is. I love all these little changes that make things better, and I did become a fan of GNOME in your challenge. I definitely saw a lot of value into how GNOME things. And one of the cool things about GNOME is it doesn't have the artifacting issue, Michael.
Huh.
Or system tray.
Okay, so GNOME Photos also has received some improvements. They've also added a meter bandwidth.
Yeah, the bandwidth thing is really cool. Actually, the GNOME Photos thing it's really interesting because it's there. The editor is not just like a basic editor because it's very simple what it does, but it has a highlight and shadow control editing. So like when if you like it's kind of weird termining, but the terminology. But as far as photography goes, you can actually like increase the highlights of a photo without adjusting the shadows, and that is very useful for like raw photo manipulation, like dark table kind of thing.
Right. So what I like is they put all of these quick features that you would use, unless you're going to go into a separate professional application. These are the things: cropping, zooming, adding shadows and highlights that you would want. You can do quickly on a photo. You're not trying to make it professional or whatnot. These are just the quick hits that you would do on a photo very quickly, like you do on your phone or anything else. And they've built that right in, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, Zeb, they also improved USB support, Thunderbolt, Bluetooth, and GNOME Box is able to drag and drop now. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not a big GNOME lover. It's just one of those desktops that I just can't get used to. But the thing I like about them is that they're always improving. They're always, and I know people are moaning because they drop off other features, but they've got their reasons for that.
I would never.
And they just, it seems that with every release they bring out a nice new little tweak that's going to make it that much better to use. So I don't know, maybe I should do the GNOME challenge for a week.
I was just going to say, you saying, it's not one I've used a lot. I was like, Rocco will make you do the GNOME challenge now.
Okay, well, we'll do the GNOME challenge. But Zeb, just so you know, this is not, not without its bad parts too. So they have a bug in GNOME, and it has a big memory leak in it. So when you start GNOME, it consumes 70 megabytes. According to one of the GNOME developers, which I will not even try to pronounce his name, and that is
out of respect
for him, I will not try to pronounce his name, but he did some testing, and GNOME Shell starts up with 70 megabytes of RAM. And then when you open or have a menu pop up, you go to 95 megabytes. And then if you load like the icon grid, you'll get up to 250 megabytes. So it constantly is eating up the memory. So I don't know, like your system is kind of like a beast though, don't you think?
I never know.
Have I got to have 10,000 icons then for it to eat up 32 gig?
Well, it does have a lot of icons, but
Yeah.
but the workaround, they're working on it. They know about it, and it's still present in the 1804 LTS beta.
Mhm.
But there is a workaround right now if you would like to do the GNOME challenge, Zeb.
Well, you
What's
tell
that
me
workaround,
what
Rocco?
to use, and I'll go for it. What do you want me to install?
All right, so I want you to do the GNOME challenge, and I want you to run GNOME for a week so that I want you to use it like not all the time, but I mean, I want you to use it enough to try to get used to the workflow, because I think the workflow is absolutely awesome. And the workaround, in case you lose all of your memory, is you press Alt F2 and you hit R and enter, and that restarts GNOME. And there you go.
That's it.
Okay.
That's all you got to do. Just restart GNOME. It's good.
Wait a minute. Let me make sure I got that. It's up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, select, start.
See, you got
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So are we talking GNOME 1710 or 1804 beta?
I would do the Ubuntu 1710. So
1710.
so that you could get used to what it's. I mean, the 1804, you never know what new bugs are going to be introduced, like a big memory leak or something like that. So I would do the.
It's in 1710 as well.
I know it is, but there may be more. So I would do the 1710.
All right. Well, that sounds good, because the next distro that Ryan found.
I love how I get blamed for this one.
And I was, no. I was getting really excited because I thought, a new distro. I've never heard of this before. What's a DVD? You can only create a DVD ISO. I mean, the ISO is 4.35 gigabytes.
Yeah.
It uses the RPM package manager. You can have no more KDE plasma. And I've got to write it to a DVD.
Yeah.
I don't have a DVD on my main machine.
What is this distro called?
Omarine or Omarine. It comes from Vietnam. There you go. So my question is, why in 2018 is there not an option to create a live USB? And I then said, I do have a writer on my laptop, but to be honest, I was unwilling to trust a distro that is provided on DVD only.
Well, in fairness, they say if you go to the about Omarine is a powerful operating system for servers, but it can also be used for desktops, GNOME or Plasma option. At the login screen, of course, you can choose which one you want to drop in. So I think this individual has a very specific purpose with it. But, a lot of times, especially with all the Ubuntu stuff coming out in the 18s, we're talking about all the same distros, and some distro hoppers want to try something new. So all you have to do is go buy yourself a DVD player. Now, finding one may be a problem because they don't make them anymore. But find yourself a DVD player and go install this.
Michael, I don't think I heard when we were talking about KDE bugs and GNOME bugs. I don't think we heard the words "in fairness."
All you need is an 8-track player, you can listen to.
So you can go get an external, like you can get an enclosure that allows you to use an optical drive through a USB port. Mm-hmm. So it's like compensating for that.
Sure.
And if you have a computer in your home that has a DVD drive, you can network your DVD drive, and any computer can access it then.
I have got one. I just wanted any excuse.
So Canonical announced that Mozilla already is available as a snap, and that you can, instead of using the deb file or RPM file, you can use the snap, which is updated by Mozilla, which is the absolutely the best part about it, is that the development, the maintenance of it is made by Mozilla. So like the updates are going to be as soon as the Windows version is ready, the Linux version is ready. That's awesome.
That is awesome. And you can install that alongside of the distribution, the Firefox version in your distribution, correct?
Yes, you can have both the distro version and the snap if you want.
Why?
Because?
What is the advantage here of putting this into a snap? Like I could just go
mainly
Firefox.
What's because distros that might not have support for this particular application. For example, let's say you're using Chaos. Firefox is GTK based, so you could use the snap version and put it on Chaos in theory. So like that by itself is the most interesting thing for me. But I think that the fact that Mozilla is the one maintaining it is has the best potential for it, because that not having to worry about when your distro is going to update the thing. Often you'll see blog posts like, there's a new Mozilla Firefox out. You'll get it someday, some point. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, can I opt out of installing the Snap?
Wow.
You could. I'm not sure why you would, because it's fantastic and Firefox is the best browser.
Ryan?
I don't know. I just heard I've heard rumors of things going on with opt out and Mozilla recently. You want to kind of bring us up to date, Michael?
I'm not aware of what you're talking about. Okay. So this is there's a lot of misinformation about this particular topic. So
of course there is.
Yes, naturally, it's the internet.
If you guys don't know, Michael loves that other podcast and Firefox more than anything else. So you'll never get him to say a negative word about either of those two.
That's not true. It's just this particular one is that Mr. Robot thing was dumb. So
okay, we got you.
There are things Firefox is not perfect about. There are things that it is fantastic, and but this is an issue where people are freaking out over something that's not that big a deal. So people were saying that this is an opt out for the settings being. They're doing a test. They're doing a shield study, which is like the way you sign up to do a data collection, anonymized data collection thing. Inside of that is also another thing you can sign up for called shield studies. Now, by default, in basically every version of the browser, those are on by default. So people are saying that's opt out, and they're doing this whole transferring statistics to Cloudflare to change out the DNS structure, so that the DNS would be automatically doing it over HTTPS. That's actually a really cool idea, and it could be save a lot of hassles in the future for speed and security. So it could be cool, but people are freaking out because of the opt-out part. However, this only is happening for Firefox nightly. So you have to opt into nightly in order, therefore, to participate in this testing. So there is no opt-out issue because it requires you to opt into nightly. So
what you're saying is basically Mozilla decided they want to test a more secure method of resolving internet names. They're using this TRR, Trusted Recursive Resolver, via DNS, and they're going to be testing this using their nightly builds. To join a nightly build, you're already signing up saying you're willing to have experiments and testing done.
Yep.
Throughout
the fact that it's a nightly build and you're getting a new version every day, that implies that you are willing to deal with all kinds of new testing stuff.
Well, people are upset about it, and they're basically saying the thing they're upset about isn't necessarily the testing, but that this information is being sent off to a third party, and that third party being Cloudflare. So why doesn't Mozilla just keep the information and do the experiment themselves versus sending it off?
Well, Cloudflare is one of the biggest CDN providers ever. They're not as big as Amazon or AWS stuff, but they're in the top 5 of the biggest things, and they also support a lot of projects like open source projects and stuff like that. So they're heavily used. So that's probably why they're doing it. Maybe there's a partnership with them or something like that. But Firefox, in order to provide a CDN, a centralized distributed network or content distributed network, you have an issue of needing to provide a plethora of servers to do that network. So you'd have to have multiple servers in multiple countries and multiple sections of those countries to make sure a CDN works properly. So instead of Mozilla building their own, they partner with one. So it makes sense that they would do a partnership. And I understand why people don't necessarily like Cloudflare because they had some issues back in the day. But as far as being really annoyed by it, it's just turn off the shield study and don't install nightly.
No, I have to disagree in a sense here, because, and I'm always probably going to disagree with the opt-in, opt-out part, because just because you opt in or sign up or go for the nightly build doesn't necessarily mean that you want to opt in to every study automatically.
It does
So-
mean that you are opting into something that is incredibly alpha, and that you should be aware of that and be checking out what everything that you would be testing with.
Correct. It does mean that it's not a stable version and I can't rely on it, but it doesn't blanket statement say I'm opted into every test that they want to do now and later. And I think that's where the problem is. This is just another thing on top of what Mozilla has already done to add to the whole opt-out thing. It's just because I sign up for a beta test to test out the operating system or the program, whichever you prefer, doesn't mean, like, if I go and I be a beta tester for, say, ArchMerge, that doesn't mean that ArchMerge is going to collect all my information and I allow that because I'm testing a beta. The whole idea of a nightly build or a beta is that it's not stable. It doesn't necessarily mean that.
And it's where they do testing. Not that that's where they test everything. So
hey, Rocco, you signed up for nightly build and we turned on your webcam and watched you for like 2 hours. If you didn't like it, you shouldn't have signed up for the
That's what I'm saying. Like, you can pretty much, that's a blanket statement to say that they can do whatever they like because you signed up for a beta build. No, that's not the case.
What kind of material is made out of that hat, Ryan? Is it tinfoil? I can't tell.
Tinfoil goes underneath that.
But this is what I'm saying, Michael. This is not the first. We've talked about it where Mozilla has made some weird choices in the last couple months.
Yeah,
and this just adds to that weird choice. That
I think that this is necessarily like not. It's odd, but it's not something to be annoyed by about the opt-in because of the fact that it's in a testing branch and it's in a heavily testing branch. And if you are going to sign up for testing branches, you should look into what you're signing up for.
But it's because nowhere in there does it say.
It is. They announce it.
There's nowhere in the beta. Like if you go to the Firefox Nightly or whatever, it doesn't say you're opted into every study we feel like turning on.
By you going to Nightly, which is literally the testing branch, there is the regular branch, stable, beta, developer, which is basically also used to be called Aurora. This is like you're less testing, but you're still testing. And then there's Nightly. Everything in Nightly is testing, like constantly. It changes all the time. So if you're not comfortable with trying out literally every change they make, don't use Nightly. That's why they shouldn't. That's why this is not an issue in my opinion.
Firefox is their main browser. Curious. Raise your hand if you use Firefox.
Raise your hand. The podcast audience can't see that.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, the people who raise their hand, podcast audience, are Rocco.
So yes, audio. Yes, I do.
I do like Firefox. I'm just making the statement that this is another one of those blocks that they're adding
I think you make a good point because I love Firefox. I when Quantum came out, I raved and I just love everything about it.
You're the reason I'm using Firefox right now.
There's enough, exactly. I told lots of people to, but there's enough annoying things Mozilla is doing, and there are petty. To Michael's point, a lot of them are small, and you're like, well, they only affect this group of people or that group of people, but they just seem to be making decisions enough times that make me scratch my head at the very least, that I'm just like,
I would also like to point out to the audio listeners that Ryan did not raise his hand.
That's right. I'm not using it. I use Vivaldi. Vivaldi's been what I've been using. When I left Firefox, I went to Vivaldi, and I love Firefox, and I'd go back to it tomorrow. But they need to chill, man, on the decisions.
These are all like minimal.
They are,
decisions.
But there's so many that keep piling up that I'm just like,
I'm saying.
I'm not sure the people making the decisions, even though these are small things, are really looking at the bigger picture across the board.
I wish they never did that Mr. Robot thing because
yeah. But in any case,
if I had any way to combat this discussion, it would be, they've not done anything frivolous, but then it's like, okay. So, but to be fair, it is very testing. And it's not that big of a deal for people to like make huge blog posts and all this other inciting riot type stuff. It's bad in general, but and that means most people consider data collection in general at all bad. So that not most, but there's a lot of people who are against that. And the whole opt-out, opt-in argument, that's pretty much, it's going to be the same regardless of who does it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that type of discussion could probably go on for a long time. So let's switch to something a little bit happier, a little bit lighter. Ryan, what have you been playing this week?
Well, this is going to make everybody happy. First of all, do any of you
Are
ever
you sure
play?
about that?
I'm positive. Have any of you ever played Mega Man?
Dogafesto?
Oh my gosh, this is so sad. My gosh.
Is that a game?
Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. All right.
No,
well,
okay, no. Mega Man's awesome.
Wait,
All right,
is that
one of the
Rocket
most-
League or?
one of the most beloved franchises of all time, Mega Man. And they're one of the developers who was involved in Mega Man series went out and did a Kickstarter to create a game called Mighty Number 9. Now, when this game first came out, it's been out for a while, but when it first came out, it got a lot of people were not happy with it because I don't know if the developer didn't deliver during the Kickstarter on some of the things he said he was or whatnot, but it really kind of went away. And I don't know, again, if the developer had been working on it since that time or this was the game, but I can tell you in playing it, I absolutely loved it. Now, I'm going to admit I played it on the PS4 because I wanted to play with my son, and he's 5 and absolutely loved it as well. I mean, technically it runs Unix, right?
Yeah,
technically.
BSD.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, in any case, I was playing it with my son. He's 5. He had an absolute blast, and the graphics. It's an updated graphics, so you've got that. It's a 2D side scroller, but you've got the beautiful, colors and graphics that you wouldn't have had on the older Mega Man series in there. You've got the boss fights at the end of the first level that you complete. You have cards with all the different bosses that you can fight, much like the Mega Man series. And the story is simple. The gameplay is simple. It's a jump and shoot, but there are puzzles. There's just a lot of fun to it. There are, of course, the big boss fights that require a lot of strategy. And I loved every second of it, including the soundtrack. So if you are a Mega Man fan, you can get this on Linux today on your machine, and it's called Mighty Number 9. It's awesome.
Going my wish list right now.
For $19.99.
It's worth it. Worth it.
Going on my wish list for the Steam sale.
Zeb, are you going to be live streaming this?
This won't be my next live stream
No?
for sure. No.
There's no traffic in it.
When I actually remembered this, like from the Kickstarter, I was so excited, and then I forgot it was existing. So I'm glad that you brought it up now, because I definitely want to play this game, because I used to be a big fan of Mega Man.
Yeah, Mega Man was amazing, and I think anybody who played Mega Man will love this one and bring their kids into it. But Rocco, we played a game this week. You and I played a game, and you just fell in love.
I was totally... Yeah, we played a game this week, and Ryan messages me and says, "Hey, you got to play this game." I'm like, okay. So he sends me...
And he literally probably said it like that.
Yeah, that's exactly. I was like, okay. I mean... He sends me the link, and I go to play it. It's okay. I will probably admit that this is more fun than the actual PUBG. Because it's a very minimal, and I will say minimal graphics-wise version of a battle royale game. Battle Royale, is that how you say it?
Yeah, there you go.
Royale.
Game, and it's like a mini PUBG, only in very limited graphics, kind of like a Pitfall type graphics.
Yeah,
like
well,
the
I mean,
first
cool.
Pitfall.
the first.
Yeah.
It's completely free to play. It's browser based. The games are instant, which I know was a big deal for when I recommended go for the kill. You're like, I got to wait here 10 minutes to get a game.
Yep.
So I knew I could recommend this one to you because I was like, man, the games are literally the second you click play, you are in it.
Well, not only that, you sent me the link and I was playing by myself, and then you sent me another link so we could do a duo match where we were playing together. And that's what actually made it pretty cool. So
yeah. And you could pick up a gun in this game, unlike go for the kill.
There were no bugs that you couldn't pick up a gun. Although, wait, you did have a little bug of not being able to see buildings, right?
Yeah, I could see the insides of the building, but not the outside section. And that was only when I joined in our team thing, and I didn't have it since. So it may have been just kind of a one-time browser thing. But
anybody's ever experienced playing PUBG, that happens in PUBG as well. So you don't have to worry about that. It's normal. That's just a battle royale thing, I guess.
It's called Battle Royale.
Yeah, battle royale is the type of game it is.
Right.
So
right. It's called Survivio.
Survivio, yeah.
And it's survive.io is the web
with the
address.
little orange men and the stick guns and
Yes.
Don't judge, Zeb.
Mm-hmm. It has potential. We should all have like do a squad and just.
This is a perfect example of a game that I cannot stop playing because it's so much fun and it's instantaneous. So when you've got like 15 minutes to burn, you go a lunch break, anything else, you can drop into this game, do a quick battle royal, and you're playing against other players. Yes, you're just a little circle. There's kind of the guns are just, colorized sticks, if you will, but you're getting armor. You're doing all the things you do in a battle royale game exactly the same. It's fast paced. It's free. Did I mention it's free? Completely free.
But I think you hit on a good point that it's one of those games where you don't need a lot of time to get into it. It's just instant play. So like if you go to play a regular game, say you want to play some Battlefield 1. First you got to boot into another operating system. Okay. Yeah. Then you got to start up Origin, and then you have to start up the game, and it's probably a 10-minute process. Okay, maybe 8-minute process to actually get from starting Battlefield to when you actually start playing Battlefield 1.
Right. Yep. And this game is literally, you got 5 minutes, you're good. You could run a quick session and have some fun. So there's another game out there because I knew Zeb was going to be judgmental. I just felt it. I felt Zeb's going to judge this game on its graphics alone and he'll never play it. So I went on a hunt. Well, not really, because game developer sites do all this for us. But Battle Royale, there's another Battle Royale browser game out there called Unsung Heroes. It's the exact same concept. It's a Battle Royale game, but it has way more enhanced art than the circle. Zeb, you're going to be blown away when you click that link, sir.
I don't know if you're going to be blown away, Zeb, but it may have.
Is this Lemmings I'm looking at?
I think you're going from Pitfall to 007 GoldenEye.
Not even that, man. 007 GoldenEye would be. But this is again this is a browser-based.
This is like the original Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, that would be a perfect. It was kind of like the original Grand Theft Auto, where your characters aren't circles, but they are, pixelated characters. Yeah. But you can see, individual guns. They're a little more detailed, and the buildings are more detailed. Now, it takes a little longer to get into these games. Not much, but just a little longer. And there's a couple bugs here and there where things weren't as smooth as Survive.io. And Survive.io has a massive player base, by the way. So you will always be able to find a game. It was a little more difficult in this one, but that's another option if you're looking for a Battle Royale game in Linux.
I love this name. I love the name of this game. I just, the name of the game was, when you said Unsung Heroes, I was like, okay, that's cool. But it's Battle Royale Unsung Heroes, so the acronym is BRUH.
Yeah, bruh. So that's what the website is. It's bruh.io.
Yo, bruh.
Love it.
Now I know why I only played racing games growing up, like Gran Turismo. This just is not me at all.
Yeah, you love traffic. I get it.
Yes. Where are the stoplights? How do you follow the rules? This is ridiculous.
Why can't I just bump this guy off the road and drive past him and win the race? Yeah.
All right. So, do you guys got anything else?
There's one more, Zeb. There's one more.
Which is?
Well, we need you to answer the question, do video games make you violent?
No.
Well, it's settled, Rocco. I guess you're right. We're done.
Yeah.
We're done. That's simple. This question comes up decade after decade after decade, and the only good example I can give you why this is psychobabble BS, okay? When I was younger, yes, I know it's a long, long time ago, Ryan, we used to play a game in the playground where you'd split into two teams, and one by one you had to reach the other side of the playground. Now, you could be stopped by being tripped over, grabbed, or jumped upon. Now, this was banned as being too violent because it taught you to be nasty to people. It suggested that violence was an acceptable way to get what you wanted. So they stopped all schools from allowing, and we used to call it British Bulldog, because the Bulldog was a tough character and could get through anything. So question, have you guys ever played rugby? Okay, let me rephrase that.
Actually, yes.
Have you ever played American football without the padding?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So, how much more violent do you want to get? And this is a national sport, yeah? We are proud to be associated with a winning team who have just tripped up, grabbed hold of, and jumped on the opposing team to win. What was the difference between British Bulldog and football? Or, not football, but rugby, American football. It's
the single ball in between.
That's it.
That's about it.
Violence, games make you violent? No.
No. So they've said the same thing about movies and TV shows and all this other stuff.
So the reason why we're on this is there was a study conducted, because this has now been politicized heavily recently again, about do games make you violent? And they did a study of 90 adults, and they split them into groups. One group played GTA. Nice shout out to that, which we know has a lot of violence and graphic scenes and things in there. And then Grand Theft Auto, right? And then the other ones played Sims, and then there was a control group that played no games. And well, the results were pretty much what Zeb said at the end of it. There were no changes. Now, they did filter out for people who had potential, mental issues, deviant behaviors, and those type of things. They filtered those people out. So they took everyday individuals without any health, mental health issues, and did the test with them and found out there was literally no change in their behavior at all, which is really not news to any of us that game. And in Zeb's case, not only are games good, but he follows all the perfect laws in games and traffic and stoplights. And right, Zeb?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like you're not going 300 miles per hour with a semi down the interstate, right?
Then if I'm not doing that, then it's not fun. But shock horror, Ryan. I bought a game.
What?
I bought a game on
you
Steam.
mean like an expansion to Euro Truck?
No. F1 2017.
Look at
Awesome.
you.
Nice.
Yeah. And thanks to Rocco, I got the previous version, F1 2015, for free.
Nice.
Because Humble Bundle was offering it free.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'll be playing those games in the next couple of weeks. I'm not going to be streaming them because there's nothing fun about me fishtailing up the motorway or swinging from side to side on the racetrack, because F1 games have been really, really twitchy from day one, and you have to set up your keyboard with the correct parameters. And I'm still trying to work all those out yet. So start 15th, end 15th is not a lot of fun on the stream.
Please let the Telegram group know, or just us, if you do stream it, because I would love to watch you stream that game.
I will do. I'm going to practice on 2015 and then go enjoy the better graphics and the better gameplay on 2017. So it'll be good.
So Rocco, that's our episode. But before we go, we want to ask people to kind of help us out with something.
Yeah, pretty much. We have, obviously a RSS feed that some of you are listening to. We also have a YouTube channel, if you didn't know. Yep. And we need your help in the rating system in your favorite podcast app, or maybe on Google Play or iTunes. We're asking for your help to give Destination Linux a rating. If you want to give us a 0 rating, no. But we're asking for your help to give Destination Linux a rating on your favorite podcast app or iTunes or Google Play, because it would really help our base grow and let us continue to do the interviews, do the podcast, and produce good content.
Absolutely. So if you're on a podcast, your podcast app, if you're on a podcast and haven't done YouTube, go subscribe on YouTube and check out our ugly mugs there. You can see all of us and enjoy it, even if it's not your preferred method or vice versa. But there are so many ways doing things like that help us out a lot. It helps us get interviews for individuals to come to the show, because they can see it's popular. A lot of people watch it and listen. They can see the comments.
It helps us get it featured as well in the podcast apps, and as far as like momentum building with algorithms and stuff.
Well,
Absolutely.
The other thing to that is you touched on interviews, and there are people out there who do not want to do interviews on a podcast that they don't feel gets to the amount of audience that they want to see. So It would just help us out. So we want to thank everybody, no matter how you watch, how you listen, for doing just that and being a part of this with us, because we enjoy bringing it to you every week, and we're so happy you are actually supporting the channel however way you do it. So it's much appreciated. Everybody have a great week, and remember, the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Destination Linux Podcast.
There you go.
Solved.
Rocco, you're muted.
I knew that. I was just testing you. Kind of like testing Firefox nightly.
I just love the show, but Rocco is such a moron.
So as a graphic designer, the word logo actually applies to all of them together, because there's the logo icon and there's the logo text. And when you say the word logo, you're actually referring to both of them.
Okay, so
when you
Mr.
be more
Designer,
specific.
I was planning on putting the logo text and the logo icon on.
Oh, in that case, all right.
You want people to recognize, as a marketing expert, Michael knows, you want people to start recognizing. And
Wow,
your
did he put words in your mouth?
Accurate words.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay when it's accurate.
I wonder if he'll be at Linux Fest. Hey, by the way, I booked my trip, Michael, so if you're going, I'll see you there, man.
So maybe we can do a live podcast from there.
I'm thinking that would be awesome. Noah's going to be there too. He's going to be podcasting live. So maybe I could steal Noah away and have him come join us, but you never know.
Maybe you could be the man on the street and do some interviews of Noah and other people that are there.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a T-shirt with your face on it, so you're there.
Oh, you don't want to do that, dude.
It's just a big, giant picture of Rocco.
You know what it's going to be, though? Noah's going to be there with this huge webcam on his shoulder, all the pod kit and all the rest of it, and there's Ryan there with his phone.
What are you trying to say, Zeb?
How else are you going to do a live podcast?
What, am I like a teenage girl in your mind or something? He's like, and there's Ryan, like a little fanboy running around with his phone.
Zeb,
What do you? I can
Zeb,
afford
he's
nice
very
equipment.
defensive. He's
So-
very defensive guy.
So Ryan, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel sad, frankly. I don't know what they're talking about.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Zeb, you won't be on my shirt. I'll tell you that much. I know it's going to have all this equipment, and you're just going to have a little phone. Sick of it.
I'll have to take this.
Hey, let me ask you, guys. So I'm going to. What did you just mock me like with that voice, like I'm some prepubescent teen girl or something?
So it was just by habit that I did.
So Zeb calls me a prepubescent teen first, then you jump on. It's your turn, Michael. Go ahead.
I would never. I would totally never do that, dude.
All right. Use your name this time.
Yeah, you ain't lying. Oh,
The whole show was perfect except for that one guy who doesn't say his name at the beginning. Again, I didn't think it all the way through. It was just a blah, blah, blah. You had it perfect last week, except you didn't mention yourself.
Yeah, you forgot to mention your own name.
He's like, and you guys know who I am. And clearly I'm Rocco. And if you need to know that, get out of our show.
I'm the Rocco of this podcast. I had another podcast to do and another podcast to do.
Yeah, what's with that, by the way, with your podcast loyalty problems, man? We need to have a discussion on that.
No. Like I said in the channel, can't you just blame my head and not my heart?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at that. I wish we could get some behind-the-scenes clips on that podcast. It's probably like, wow, you guys are so much more professional than those Destination Linux guys. I wish you guys would invite me over to this one. Man, you should see the train wreck I have to work in. You guys really know what you're doing over here.
I would absolutely never even consider letting you listen to that.
Exactly.
They have this idiot Ryan over there, and he just walks around with his phone like a teenage girl all day.
And then you got this loser worried about pixels.
But I told them they have my heart. Isn't that funny? They fell for it. What morons. Destination losers.
There's enough of me to go around. Okay, jeez.
So they may not have room for it, is what you're saying?
Right. They might not have room, or they might not want to devote that much room.
Oh, we'd have to cover up somebody else's podcast. Oh, too bad.
You mean like Late Night Linux or Ubuntu podcast?
Exactly. It's so sad.
Wow. I was on Late Night Linux before I was on this show, okay? Jeez. Be easier that way because then we don't have to remember to do it every time, which we won't.
We won't.
Yeah, we won't.
Not in this podcast, but the other one I visited this week. There we are. They already had bumpers pre-recorded, and it was perfect.
They've also had
400 ratings on their podcast.
They've also had 11 years of doing the podcast. So.
They have 600 and some members in their Telegram group.
And you're all nice to me and call me Master Michael.
I would never mock a Telegram group count because the Destination Linux has like 200 more than me. So like, whatever.
Oh my gosh! Are you guys ready?
Let's do this, man. We're professionals.
Ready as I'll ever be.
Give me 27 seconds.
25. 23. 21. 19. 17.
16.
15. 13. 11. 9. 7. 5. 3. 2. 1. Are you ready, Michael?
Destination Linux is a go.
So did you just need that 27 seconds to giggle because I saw you do nothing?
Yes.
And I'm the schoolgirl, Zeb?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Well, the first part, I was just looking to make sure I was on the right part of the document. I only needed about 7 seconds for that. And then I just started counting down and I lost it.
So you really didn't, you lied. You didn't need 27 seconds. You just needed 5.
I needed 27 and you all ruined 23 of them.
Is that how they do it over on your favorite podcast?